The dust settled around Maria's boots as she stood on the porch, watching the sun climb over the Wyoming hills. Her younger sister Carmen sat on the steps behind her, swinging her legs impatiently, while their mother Elena smoothed her Sunday dress for the third time. It had been 6 months since they'd seen anything beyond the fence line of the Double R Ranch, and the isolation was beginning to wear on all of them like sandpaper on soft wood. Tom Richardson emerged from the barn, his weathered hands working a rag over the steering wheel he'd been fixing. He was a man of few words, his face creased from decades of Wyoming wind and sun, but his eyes held a kindness that had made him agree to take them in when their father died last winter. The influenza had swept through the valley like a cruel wind, taking Felipe Gonzalez and leaving his family with nothing but debt and desperation. Maria cleared her throat, the words she'd been practicing all morning suddenly feeling too heavy on her tongue. Tom looked up, squinting against the morning light, and waited. He always waited, never rushing, as if he understood that some words needed their own time to arrive. "Mr. Richardson," Maria began, her voice steadier than she felt, "can you take us to town?" She felt Carmen's hopeful gaze burning into her back, heard her mother's sharp intake of breath. "It's been so long, and Mama needs supplies for her sewing, and Carmen needs shoes that actually fit, and I thought maybe I could look for work at the hotel or the general store." Tom set down the steering wheel and walked toward them with that unhurried gait of his boots crunching on the gravel. He stopped at the base of the porch steps and pushed his hat back, revealing the pale skin of his forehead that never saw sun. His expression was unreadable, a quality that had made the past months difficult to navigate. They never quite knew where they stood with him, whether they were guests or workers, charity cases or something more permanent. "Town," he repeated, as if testing the word. His gaze moved from Maria to Elena to little Carmen, who had stopped swinging her legs and was holding her breath. "That's 30 miles of rough road. Takes most of a day there and back." Maria felt her hope beginning to deflate, but she stood her ground. "We know it's far. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Tom was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as if he were chewing on something tough. Then he said, "Only if you promise to come back home." The word hung in the air between them like a butterfly suspended in amber. Home. Not back to the ranch. Not back here, but home. Maria felt something shift in her chest, a tightness she hadn't known was there beginning to loosen. "Of course we'll come back," Carmen piped up, unable to contain herself any longer. "Where else would we go?" Tom's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile but was close enough. "All right then. Get yourselves ready. We leave in an hour." The truck bounced along the dirt road, its suspension groaning with every rut and rock. Maria sat in the middle, Carmen pressed against the passenger door with her nose practically against the window, watching the landscape change from familiar to foreign. Elena sat in the bed of the truck, her back against the cab, her face turned toward the sky with an expression of such peace that it made Maria's throat tight. Tom drove in silence, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. Maria had learned over the months that he wasn't a man who filled space with unnecessary words. When he spoke, it meant something. When he was quiet, it meant he was thinking, or that there was simply nothing that needed saying. "You planning on staying in town?" he asked suddenly, his eyes never leaving the road. Maria felt Carmen tense beside her. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Tom said carefully, "that you're a bright young woman. Capable. You could probably find work in town. Maybe even make your way to Cheyenne or Denver eventually. Might have opportunities there that you won't find on a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere." Maria studied his profile, trying to read the emotion behind the words. Was this a test? An invitation? A gentle push toward the door? "Are you trying to get rid of us, Mr. Richardson?" "Tom," he said. "After 6 months, I think you can call me Tom." He adjusted his grip on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "And no, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I'm trying to be fair. You didn't choose this life. You fell into it out of necessity. If there's something better out there for you and your family, I wouldn't want to be the thing holding you back." Carmen made a small noise of protest, but Maria put a hand on her sister's knee, silencing her. She thought about the past 6 months, about learning to cook for ranch hands, about helping with the books and discovering she had a head for numbers, about the way Tom had quietly fixed up the foreman's cottage for them without being asked, about how he'd taught Carmen to ride despite having no children of his own and presumably no patience for teaching. "What would you do if we didn't come back?" Maria asked. Tom was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then he said, "I'd manage. I always have." But there was something in his voice, a hairline crack in the foundation, that told her it would cost him more than he was letting on. The town appeared on the horizon like a mirage, its buildings small and dusty but representing civilization and possibility. Carmen practically vibrated with excitement as they rolled down Main Street, past the Mercantile and the hotel, the saloon and the church, the small schoolhouse where she might attend if they stayed long enough. Tom parked the truck in front of the general store and climbed out, stretching his back. "Take your time," he said. "I've got business at the feed store. Meet back here in 3 hours." Maria watched him walk away, his shoulders straight despite the weight of years and work. Elena climbed down from the truck bed, her dress dusty but her eyes bright. "Come," she said to her daughters. "Let's see what this town has to offer." They spent the next hours moving through the town like women starved for stimulation. Elena priced fabric and thread, her fingers dancing over the materials with the practiced touch of a seamstress. Carmen tried on shoes, her face glowing when they found a pair that fit perfectly. And Maria inquired about work, speaking to Mrs. Henderson at the hotel and Mr. Clark at the Mercantile. Both offered her positions. The hotel needed someone to manage the front desk and keep the books. The Mercantile needed help with inventory and could teach her to run the register. Both paid decent wages. Both would allow her to support her family without depending on Tom's charity. Maria stood in the Mercantile, holding the promise of independence in her hands like a fragile egg, and felt utterly torn. She could take these opportunities, move her family to town, build a new life from the ashes of the old one. They could rent rooms above the Mercantile, and Carmen could go to school every day instead of studying from old books by lamplight. Elena could take in sewing from the townspeople, expand her skills and her income. But the thought of leaving the ranch felt like removing a vital organ. When had that happened? When had the Double R stopped being a temporary refuge and started feeling like the place she belonged? "You look troubled," Mrs. Henderson said, her kind eyes observing Maria from behind the counter. "Good job offers aren't usually cause for such a frown." "I'm grateful," Maria said quickly. "It's just complicated." "The Richardson Ranch," Mrs. Henderson said knowingly. "Tom's a good man. Fair employer. Lonely, though. Has been since his wife passed. Oh, must be 10 years now. Never had children. Never remarried. That ranch is his whole world." She paused, selecting her next words carefully. "Would be a shame to see it stay that way." Maria met the older woman's gaze and saw understanding there, a recognition of something Maria herself was only beginning to acknowledge. The ranch wasn't just a place to them anymore. Tom wasn't just an employer or a benefactor. Somewhere between the morning coffees and the evening tallies, between teaching Carmen to ride and Elena's home-cooked meals that brought life back to that big empty house, they had become something like a family. When they met back at the truck, Tom was already waiting, leaning against the hood with his arms crossed. His eyes found Maria's immediately, searching for an answer to a question he hadn't quite asked. "How'd it go?" he said. Carmen launched into an enthusiastic description of her new shoes and all the wonders of town, but Maria could tell Tom was only half listening. He was watching her, waiting. "I got 2 job offers," Maria said finally, and she saw something flicker across his face. Pride mixed with resignation. "Good ones. Steady pay, room to grow." "That's wonderful," Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. She looked between Maria and Tom, reading the subtext in their silence. "Yeah," Maria said. "It is." She took a breath, feeling Carmen's hand slip into hers, feeling the weight of the decision settling over her like snow. "I turned them both down." Tom's head snapped up. "What?" "I told them thank you, but I already have work. Important work." She held his gaze, letting him see the truth of it. The ranch needs someone who understands the books, who can help manage the business side while you handle the cattle and the land. Carmen needs space to run and learn, not cramped rooms above a store. And Mama's sewing business can operate just as well from the ranch, maybe better, without the distraction of town noise. "Maria," Tom said, his voice rough. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, she interrupted. That's the point. We're choosing this. We're choosing to come back home, like you asked. But only if you're sure you want us there. Not as charity cases or temporary help, but as real partners in making that ranch work. Tom looked at Elena, who nodded slowly, her eyes bright. He looked at Carmen, who grinned up at him with complete trust. Then he looked back at Maria, and this time he did smile, a real smile that transformed his entire face. I think we can manage that, he said. Partners. The drive back to the ranch felt different, lighter somehow despite the truck being weighted down with supplies. Carmen chattered about her day, planning all the places she'd explore in her new shoes. Elena hummed old songs from her childhood, her fingers already imagining the fabric she'd ordered into dresses and quilts. And Maria sat in the middle, her shoulder occasionally brushing Tom's as the truck navigated the rough road, feeling something like hope unfurling in her chest. When the ranch came into view, the late afternoon sun painting the hills gold and amber, Tom slowed the truck to a stop just before the entrance. He looked at the three women who had transformed his empty house into something alive again. Welcome home, he said simply. And this time, when Maria heard the word, she knew exactly what it meant.